A Tall&Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 42, and Everyone Needs a Little Hero, Chapter 29, True Colors Revealed, Part 2. He had done it. It took hours of work, but it was done. After finding it beneath the floorboards and prying it free, Soren gazed at his masterpiece in admiration. It was absolutely stunning and, best part, he knew it would fit. Soren readjusted his hip lamp, which he hanged above him, to look down at the ring in his lap. It was a beautiful silver band with several large jewels embedded in the metal. It took a bit of polishing and work to get the stones to shine, and even longer to make sure they couldn't wiggle free. Still, it was all worth it. The ring had probably fallen between the floorboards or swept into the air vent years ago, based on the amount of grime and dust that was in it. It was sad that it was forgotten, but it made for a good borrowing, especially for what Soren intended to do. Soren stared at the ring and spun it around in his hands a few times. Maybe it was silly, but he hoped he was doing this right. He wanted to do all of this right, at least for Ashlyn. Though nothing could be official in the laws of the humans, it was the gesture that mattered to him. He had chosen how he wanted to live his life, and that meant staying with Ashlyn. A borrower union was probably very different than a human wedding ceremony. Still, this ring was a symbol of how much Ashlyn meant to him. She would say that she didn't need grand gestures or trinkets and so forth. Ashlyn would probably say that she just needed him and the found family they had created together. A little bling wouldn't hurt, though. Soren had it planned out in his head. The boys would need to be somewhere else during dinner. Soren thought of a few places he could put it where Ashlyn would actually see it. He'd seen proposals in the movies they watched, but he wanted this experience to be special, unique. Well, more unique than their situation already was. With a light chuckle and feeling over the moon nervous and excited, Soren carefully put the ring into his bag and hid it under the flap with a few other borrowings. Perhaps he would do it tomorrow. He needed a little bit of time to prepare. He hoisted his pack over his shoulders and made the trek back to his home. While his mind sparked with possibilities, he balanced across the nails and beams, ducking under wires and cables. Soren was so focused on the task before him that he almost didn't hear his youngest brother, Ray, call out his name. "Soren, wait up!" called Ray. Soren heard Ray's footsteps thumping quickly up to him. He paused and turned just in time for Ray to be by his side. "Sorry, I didn't hear you. Are you heading home?" asked Soren as he looked into his brother's face. Yeah. Hero and I finished up early, and he needed to help out with dinner. It was a natural breaking point," said Ray. Soren nodded in acknowledgement and started to lead the way once again to their home. The two of them walked in silent tandem for a few minutes before Ray piped up. "Hey, Soren, do you mind if I ask you something?" asked Ray. Soren had heard this phrase before, and he was never sure where the conversation was going to go when Ray asked this. Still, he nodded and focused on his youngest brother. "Sure," he said as he braced himself for Ray's question. "When we moved, not when Ashlyn came to get us, but the first time with Dad, did we get thin and twitchy?" asked Ray. Soren was taken completely off guard by the question. He hadn't thought about that move in years. He remembered it was cold, and that they didn't grab enough blankets to keep them warm since it would add too much extra weight. They needed to be quick, and heavy packs were a hindrance. Soren recalled the feeling of numbness as he surrendered his blankets and jackets to his younger brothers, waving away their concern by telling them he wasn't cold when Soren knew very well he was on the verge of freezing to death. Soren thought about their physical conditions. The boys did get a bit thinner, as did he. Their faces weren't as full as they were when they had secure living areas, and they were a bit nervous until they found Ashlyn's home. Despite the hardships, Soren thought hard about the question and thought that he had done a good job of keeping his brother safe. Well, a little, if I remember. We had to ration pretty hard, and living outside made us all a little jumpy, said Soren. Then it occurred to him. Like anything with Ray, it was probably a root cause of why he was asking this question. Why? Ray stopped walking for a moment as he scrunched his nose in contemplation. Well, I met someone today. Another borrower, stated Ray. Soren glanced back at his brother to see the gears practically whirring in his head. Ray was obviously replaying his interactions with the newcomer, and instantly the air around the younger brother seemed to change. He said his name was Emile, and he was really thin and tattered. He said he was scouting ahead and that he and his group had to migrate, but... Ray's voice trailed off. At once, Soren's hair stood up on the back of his neck. Whatever Ray was feeling, Soren was beginning to pick up on it. But something felt off about him, finished Soren. Ray locked his pale blue eyes onto Soren and nodded, his youthful features stiff as he thought. Like what? The two brothers had stopped walking at this point and were balanced on the home stretch beam that led to their entrance through the floorboard joist into Ashlyn's apartment. I don't know. He just seemed a little too thin and a little too jittery. Okay, yeah, he's probably been through some stuff while being out on his own, but he didn't have good answers to some of my follow-up questions, stated Ray. And they were easy questions, like why the whole group didn't move together, and why he didn't bring any supplies if he was a scout. Soren saw the dilemma, and pondered it for a moment. Maybe they couldn't bring anything with them? Soren suggested. Ray shrugged and tore his eyes away from Soren, placing his hands on his hips exasperatedly. I thought about that, but then why didn't he just say that when I asked him? I don't know, Soren. Something just feels wrong about this guy, said Ray. Soren pulled a smile onto his face as he stepped forward and clasped his brother's shoulder. It struck Soren that Ray wasn't just a little kid anymore. His instincts were developing, and he was growing into the man he would become. That kind of thinking is what'll keep you safe, complimented Soren. My advice? Trust your instincts, but don't discount what this Emile guy has been through. Stress and misfortune make people behave differently. Maybe he's in the same kind of situation we were, and he's friends with a human who brought him here, and he just doesn't know how to say it. Maybe they've lost people. We don't know. What you can do is be aware and alert, while also being kind. If something is wrong, and there very well could be, we want him to be able to come to us for help. So, just leave everything as is? That feels so passive. Like I'm waiting around for something bad to happen, groaned Ray. Soren squeezed his brother's shoulders once again and smiled. Then tomorrow you and I should go down and have a chat with them, yeah? If they need supplies or things to help them, we should help. Then I can get a first-hand feel for the guy, said Soren. I mean, if they don't have anything, they'll need food and clothing and borrowings. Ray thought about this for a moment before nodding. I do have some inventions that could help. I just designed a wearable claw suit that they could use to defend themselves, and maybe a little offering would help him open up, sighed Ray. Soren smiled and nodded again. That sounds like a good start, grinned Soren. But let's worry about that tomorrow. Ray smiled and nodded. Gosh, when did you get so grown up? Muttered Soren, as he suddenly drew his brother in for a headlock. Soren managed to ruffle Ray's hair a few times before he managed to break out of the lock. Playfully, he made a few quick punches to Soren's sides and pretended to cuff him on the ears, keeping his arms up and staying on the balls of his feet, ready to spring in any direction if Soren lunged. Oh, you've been practicing your combat, I see. Well, we'll have to put that to the test after dinner, stated Soren, boldly rolling his shoulders and cracking his knuckles. Bring it on, Grandpa, teased Ray as he reached out and tried to cuff Soren on the ear. Soren, with his lightning reflexes, was already prepared for Ray's maneuver and caught his loose fist in his left hand and whipping Ray around, forcing him to the ground and using his body weight against him. This Grandpa still has some spring in his step, little big man. Now, let's go. We'll be late for dinner. The two of them raced back to the electrical cover by the floorboard and entered Ashlyn's apartment. They were instantly greeted by the sounds and smells of dinner cooking and Ashlyn talking to someone, most likely Dorian, about music. While Soren's evening was occupied with the thoughts of his upcoming plans with Ashlyn and the ring, Ray's mind continued to wander to the strange borrower. Perhaps he was just nervous. Maybe he had lost people, like Soren said. Of all the supplies the rafters gave to Emile, weapons were not one of them. Perhaps they would need some. At the very least, they probably needed tools and such to get started. Perhaps this was something he could do on his own. The evening passed way too fast, and Ray was left awake and restless. After dinner, just as Soren had promised, the two of them sparred and wrestled. Though Soren had the upper hand at being quick and bigger than his little brother, Ray was pleased that he was able to hold his own. He even managed to get Soren to tap. Twice. Granted, it was a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of times he was pinned, but it still felt like an accomplishment. This was not what was on Ray's mind, though. It was Emile. The conversation played over and over in his mind. Everything Soren suggested also helped to muddy the waters. Finally, after hours of tossing and turning, Ray had enough. He forced himself upright, pulled on his clothes, and then attached his weapons and gadgets to his body. Ray's emergency grapple hung by his hips, while his wearable claws were attached to his shoulders. Ray had his pin as well as a pack of supplies, such as blankets that he knew Ashlyn wouldn't mind if he took, and food. For good measure, he also strapped on his own dagger and sword. It felt a bit excessive and clunky, but Ray had managed to downsize his gear to be flexible and durable. Spending so much extra time down with Ashlyn and the supplies she had made all the difference in the world in his designs. With a bit of colored pencil, Ray scribbled a note on their sticky note memo board that he was going out to the ground floor to find Emile and would be back before breakfast. So Ray set out into the walls. It was still dark outside from what he could see. A quick glance at the clock revealed it was almost 6 in the morning. It would take almost that long just to get down to the ground level without using Clink's lift. But Ray decided he could use the time to think about the best strategy going forward. Should he say he was concerned that they didn't have any tools? Should he start with an apology for being so direct and uncompassionate in his questioning? Which tools was Ray willing to part with permanently? And which ones was he all right with, no pun intended, letting them borrow? One step after the next, he descended the stairs and maneuvered himself through the walls and around bundles of electrical cord until he made it to the main staircase. He followed the path, hip lamp illuminating the way, until he reached the ground level. Once he did, however, the hair once again stood up on the back of his neck. There was something in the air, like charged electricity. As Ray walked forward, he heard the sound of distant clanking and rustling. It sounded far away, but it was enough for him to be on alert. Ray's hand instinctively went to his dagger once again, and he extinguished his hip lamp entirely. The teenage borrower was familiar enough with the passages down here to know where the walls were, and how not to lose his way. Tiptoeing as quietly as possible, he maneuvered through the floor joists along one of the far walls. Ray's heart started to thump harder in his chest as he followed the suspicious sounds further and further away from the main walkway. Then, without warning, the sound stopped. The air settled into a tense silence. Ray closed his eyes and listened as hard as he could. Nothing. Nothing was making sound nearby. Whatever was rustling had stopped, at least for now. What was going on? Then, up ahead, Ray noticed that there was a bit of light. It wasn't much, but it looked like early morning daylight. His eyes adjusted and took in the source of illumination. His heart pounded harder. He felt his insides squirm with unease. Every impulse screamed for him to turn back. Unfortunately, his curiosity would always get the better of him. He needed to know what was ahead making those sounds and generating that light. Daylight meant that the basement and the baseboards were exposed to the outside world, which was dangerous. Was this how Emile got inside? Ray rounded the next corner and felt his insides drop into his shoes. There, in front of him, was a hard plastic cage. There were little air holes in the very top, and if Ray weren't paying attention, he could have walked right into it. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Ray stepped forward carefully and noticed that parts of the exterior were covered in what looked like a black trash bag. Ray took a few steps back and looked at the scene, every horrid thought capturing his mind. It looked like the cage was being disguised with various pieces of junk and plastic bags. It was meant to look like a tunnel through the junk, and it led right into the hard plastic cage. No. Did this mean... You! Ray spun around and was instantly face to face with Emile. His pack was gone, and he looked slightly more haggard than he did the day before. He was limping severely, and he was shaking from head to toe. Emile's face was twisted into a look of pure terror as his brown eyes flicked from Ray to the cage and then back to Ray. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't have seen this. Wait a second, stammered Ray, holding his hands out in a motion of surrender. Emile, just talk to me. What is going on? Although Ray suspected what was going on, he needed to hear it. He needed to hear that a borrower was helping a human trap them. No, whimpered Emile. This is so bad. Ray needed to de-escalate the situation. Emile needed to know Ray was on his side, that he could help. Whatever was going on could be stopped. Nothing bad needed to happen. Ray needed to show Emile that. He took a breath and stared at the panicking Emile, hoping his words would get through. Emile, listen to me. I can help you, but you have to let me leave and get my... No! I can't let you leave. Emile roared, and, in a sudden frenzy, he lunged forward toward Ray. He had no choice. Ray needed to fight. As Emile lunged forward, Ray braced himself and ducked under Emile's clenched fist. He was horribly unbalanced, and Ray took advantage of it. He clenched his fist and made a quick jab against Emile's ribs. Emile howled in pain, sending a pang of guilt through Ray. Emile staggered to the side, arms wrapping around his torso, as he winced and gasped for air. Whatever was beneath Emile's tattered clothes was obviously painful, and Ray hit a pressure point with precision and power. I need to be more careful, thought Ray. I don't want to hurt him. I need him on my side. Ray, distracted in the moment, missed Emile's quick recovery. Fueled by adrenaline, Emile managed to grasp onto Ray's shirt and began forcing him backward toward the cage. His adrenaline-fueled speed and strength had Ray staggering backward, trying to regain his footing. Ray grasped at Emile's shirt as he caught a glimpse of Emile's wild eyes. Feet finally getting purchase, Ray was mere inches from the entrance to the cage. One wrong move, and he would be thrown backward into the hard plastic container with no chance of easy escape. Thankfully, Ray's training with Soren and Ashlyn kept him strong. While Emile had height and fear on his side, Ray had experience. The two were at a stalemate, both struggling for an upper hand. The older borrower grunted as he struggled to dislodge Ray's firm footing. Ray, on the other hand, decided to try and talk to him again.
Emile, we can help you. You can't.
Emile roared as he kicked at Ray's shins and threw him on the ground. Ray grunted in pain, the throbbing dulled by his own adrenaline, as he watched in horror as Emile grabbed him by his pack and began dragging him into the cage. Ray's mind raced. He needed to do something, and quick.
No!
Ray shouted as he thrashed and grasped at the ground for a handhold. Then, his fingers felt the trigger at his side. His gear. Ray clutched the trigger and fired his grappling device on his left side. The spring shot the hook and, as if Ray had willed it to happen, it gained purchase on the corner of a nearby pipe. Slapping the connecting wire, the gears whirred at his side and yanked him and Emile with incredible speed across the ground toward the pipe. The sudden jolt made Emile's grip loosen on Ray, making it easy for Ray to roll on the ground away from Emile and get back up onto his feet. The young borrower meant for the weapons he brought to help Emile, but he was glad he already had it equipped. Ray slipped his hands into the grips of his wearable claws and stood in a defensive position, weight on his back foot.
Emile, listen to me,
Ray roared.
Nothing's happened here. We can still fix this.
Emile whimpered and shook his head as he lunged at Ray again, muttering incoherently in a mad babbling. Ray was ready this time. He blocked several frantic punches, deflecting the blows with the leather strap along his shoulders where the claws were affixed. Ray didn't want to hurt Emile, but he would defend himself.
Don't make me hurt you,
Ray shouted as he rolled out of the way. There was his chance. Emile's side was wide open. As Emile lunged once again, Ray rolled forward and slashed a warning shot, tearing Emile's shirt to ribbons. That's when Ray spotted the horrifying bruises beneath the tattered pieces of cloth. Ray recognized the size and shape immediately. Human fingers. It was hard to miss. They were the exact kind of bruises Ray's father, Brady, had on his body before he slipped away. Emile used Ray's momentary stun as his chance to wrap his arm around Ray's neck. The pressure against his throat made Ray's knees go weak. He reached up, abandoning the grips on his claws, to try and peel Emile's firm grasp away from his neck. Sadly, it was no use. Ray's vision was going black. He was gasping for air, while his heart began pounding erratically. Emile knelt, dragging Ray backward toward the ground, his vision darkening again.
I'm sorry. I have to do this,
whimpered Emile into Ray's ear.
No, you don't.
Ray wanted to speak, but the last of his air was trapped in his lungs. Just before he faded, Ray remembered he had one last grappling hook. In a last-ditch effort, he grabbed the trigger and fired, pressing the wires into the gears so they would whir into action. Ray didn't see the hook launch. He didn't hear it clatter against the metal beams above him. All Ray knew was that a moment later he was flying through the air, rocketing toward the ceiling, Emile grasping Ray's pack to keep from falling. Ray gasped for air just in time to be slammed into the metal beam, knocking the wind from his chest and leaving him wheezing. The weight on his back suddenly slipped, and Ray heard Emile hit the ground harshly. There was silence for several seconds before Ray heard a gasp from below. There were several precious seconds where Ray collected himself and realized he was hanging in the air. He needed to get back to the ground, and fast. Ray grasped the metal beam above him, unhooked the grapple, and let himself drop to the ground. Even though he braced for impact, Ray still staggered a little as he approached Emile, who was laying on the ground, groaning. Ray didn't want to hurt a fellow borrower who was incapacitated. So, he reeled in his hip grapples and brandished the clawed hooks once again. The young teen stood over his adversary and held out the claws, ready to strike at a moment's notice.
Emile, stop!
Ray said, his voice sounding commanding and not quite his own.
This is insane! Stop fighting me! I can help you! We can help you!
Suddenly, Ray watched as tears began spilling from Emile's eyes, smearing the mud and grime in tracks down his face. He choked out a sob as he realized he had been beaten.
It's over. It's over. It doesn't matter.
Emile sobbed. Ray's heart twisted in pain. He had glimpsed the horror of what it was like for a borrower to be captured by a human, and he couldn't imagine what Emile had been through. Still, this was a step beyond.
It does matter, Emile, said Ray. We have people who can help. Come with me. You don't have to see that human anymore. You were seen, right? Captured? We could protect you, but you have to come with me.
Emile's face twisted in anguish.
But it won't save my family,
he wailed. Ray's insides churned.
Family?
Echoed Ray. Suddenly it made sense.
That's why you're working with a human. Your family's been captured too?
Emile nodded and shied away from Ray's pale blue gaze. The young borrower teen was at a loss for words. As he thought about Emile's reasoning, he wasn't sure if he would make a different choice than Emile. To protect his family, he would do anything.
Emile,
said Ray as he lowered the claws ever so slightly.
We can still help you. We can rescue your family. We can get you all out of here. You don't understand. Austin has them in his van. There's nothing.
Austin. Ray's world stopped. Suddenly, his ears were ringing. Bile filled the back of his throat. He wanted to vomit and cry, scream and rage. There was no way this was a different Austin. It had to be the same one who killed his father all those years ago. Who else would know how to design traps to keep borrowers in? Ray straightened up. This was personal now. Jaw clenched and knuckles white and trembling. Ray knew exactly what he had to do.
I'm getting your family back. Right now. Where's the van?
Stated Ray firmly, voice devoid of emotion. Emile looked up at Ray in complete disbelief.
You... what? What?
I said, where is the van? Demanded Ray.
Tell me!
Ray began to point the claws back at Emile.
Just beyond the pipe,
stammered Emile. That was all Ray needed. He spun on his heel and headed for the pipe that seemed to have the most light.
Wait, please, don't get caught. I need to.
No, you don't need to do anything. You'll get in my way. This is personal. If you want to save your family, do not get in my way. Stay here as lookout, and I'll be back.
He'll catch you,
wailed Emile as Ray continued to walk away. No, he won't, said Ray quietly. I'm not helpless anymore. Ray followed the tunnel, marching along toward a light at the far end. Was this stupid? Yes. Should he be doing this alone? No, absolutely not. Still, he was going to do this. He needed to do this. When he was close enough, Ray decided to pull out all of the stops and use every trick in the book. The borrower team crouched down as he was a foot or so from the entrance of the upward tunnel entrance and fished out a piece of bread from his pack. It was light and, hopefully, it was noticeable enough. Ray threw the bread with precision and watched it bounce and roll in front of the hole. He used all of his senses, and nothing happened. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, nothing. Ray crouch-walked all the way to the entrance and glanced up, seeing nothing but the sky above. To the borrower team, this was good. It was outside, yes. However, it also meant that there were more places to run to. Ray hoisted himself up out of the hole and peered around. Immediately, he spotted a massive white van with pest control and exterminator on the side of it, as well as a mostly vacant parking lot area. Good. Ray was quick to roll out of the hole and darted across the burning hot pavement until he made it to the shadow of the car. The sun was rising, meaning everyone would be awake soon. Ray needed to hurry. He dislodged his hip hook and spun it around and around, letting it fly. It clattered against the inside mechanisms and hooked against one of the wires. Ray ascended the line without issue and balanced his way across the different mechanisms and wires until he found what looked like part of an air vent. This was good news. Using every skill he possessed, he shimmied up through the pipe, carefully wiggling and climbing until he slipped through the final chamber. Looking inside, he saw no one. There was no human and no one obviously out in the open. For a moment, Ray feared he was in the wrong place when he spotted the backpack Emile had on just yesterday. It was the one the rafters had given him. Using his claws, Ray pried one of the vent flaps open and forced himself inside, slipping through and dropping to the floorboard of the driver's side. Heart pounding and senses on high alert, Ray crept through the vehicle to the back, where he felt his stomach churn again. He spotted a whole array of tools and tables that would easily be used to torment and expose someone like him, a borrower. Ray would have continued his investigation if he hadn't heard the thumping from up above and a muffled voice shouting at him. He turned around and looked up to see another borrower, a woman, pressed against the hard plastic edge of a container. Her fists were slamming into the plastic, and she was shouting at Ray. "Hang on!" hissed Ray as he took his hook and began swinging it around and around. It flew through the air and, after a few tries, Ray managed to get it hooked onto one of the air holes in the containers. Ray had never climbed a line so fast in all of his life as he hoisted himself up onto the third shelf to face a woman. The shelf was 3 boxes long, and each one contained a few borrowers. The woman had 2 young children with her, while the one on the end had a teenage borrower girl, and the one on the other end had a borrower who looked to be a little older than Soren. It was a heart-wrenching sight. All of them looked broken and bruised, wild fear rampant in their eyes as they all looked at Ray. "What are you doing? Get out of here!" howled the man. Wait, please. Can you save my children, please?" pleaded the woman. "Is my husband okay? Is Emile okay?" Tears sprung to her eyes as she clutched onto the 2 young borrower children. Ray's thoughts went to his friend, Hero. What would Hero do to help comfort them? Ray was practical and mechanical. It was Hero who had the heart of gold. Taking a breath, Ray knew what he needed to do. "Don't worry. I'm getting you out of here. My name is Ray. I need you all to be quiet and to work with me, okay? Emile is fine, but we need to move quickly. Now, where is Austin? The human?" asked Ray. "Gone. He left. He said something about bringing friends. I think he's inside the building," stated the man. As he stood and pressed himself against the plastic, Ray felt his insides twist. Austin was gone? That meant that whatever he was planning was already being set in motion. They needed to be quick.
Please, we have to destroy this place. He's got everything in here. I can help you if you get me out first. No, please, my kids!
I said I'm getting all of you out of here, hissed Ray firmly. But you all need to work with me. Okay, now, I'm getting you out first. What's your name?
Leon. My name is Leon,
said the borrower man, as he earned a nasty glare from Emile's wife. Leon, listen to me. I'm getting you out to help me lift the lids on the rest, okay? If you run off, so help me, I will make you regret it. Got it? Commanded Ray. Leon nodded. Ray perched himself precariously on the edge and jumped up onto the top of the box containing the mother as he used his claws to inch part of the side off. Using some of his tools, Ray inched the edge off of the box until it was just barely big enough for Leon to slip through. The two of them made quick work of the next box, getting the mother and her 2 children out before going to the last one. The young teenage borrower girl looked at Ray sadly as she pulled herself to the edge. Ray could immediately see that this was going to be interesting. Much like Ray's friend, Theo, her legs seemed to splay behind her. Now more determined than ever, Ray helped hoist the lid free just as he heard her soft voice speak.
Just leave me,
she mumbled.
I can't walk. He broke them.
Ray felt his blood boil as he looked down at her. Her blonde hair was dulled, and her sapphiric blue eyes had lost their shine. More determined than ever now, Ray took a chance and hopped down into the box beside her and unlatched his claws. You're coming with me. Get on my back, I'm carrying you, demanded Ray. The girl looked at him in disbelief.
But I'll just slow you down,
she said disbelievingly. You won't slow me down, stated Ray as he grabbed the girl's wrist and hoisted her onto his back. Using his straps and keeping her draped firmly against his back, he secured her tightly like he had seen Soren do to Maisie so many times. He stood, legs quaking slightly, as he took Leon's hand and hoisted both himself and the girl out of the box. It would have been impossible on their own, but together they were now all safe, for the most part. Now they just needed to escape, and Ray knew the perfect route. With Leon's help, they secured the 2 young children to him and to their mother, as Ray helped lower them to the ground. I have a plan to get out, okay? Head for the driver's side. It's on the left, okay? Directed Ray as he helped lower Leon, making sure the line was secure before descending with the girl. Her grip was firm, but obviously fading. As Ray descended, all he could hear her muttering over and over again was, "Thank you."
When we get through this,
Ray puffed, feeling a bit out of breath from so much climbing.
I get to learn your name. Deal.
Deal. Ray retrieved the backpack Emile was given, climbing up the middle console with the cup holders, and stepped across the driver's seat, where he once again used his claws to help unlock the door and pull the handle.
Won't the human notice?
Whimpered the girl, as she kept her arms around Ray's neck.
Yeah, but not before we get out of here, and he panics. Hopefully, I'll have backup by then,
said Ray as he slid down the line to the now slightly ajar door. He looked to Leon and the mother now as he pointed to the door. Now, listen carefully. Follow behind me closely, and I'll get you inside safe. I'm going to take you to a safe place, but you have to trust me, okay? Don't run off into the walls or outside. I think that's what Austin will want from all of us.
Hey,
said Leon as he tapped the young teen's shoulder.
How do you know the human's name?
Ray sighed as he nodded slowly. He got my dad a while back. I'd know the name anywhere, stated Ray.
I escaped him before, and we're doing it again. Now, let's go.
Seemingly satisfied with his reply, the mother and Leon followed behind Ray as he slipped out of the driver's side door to the pavement below, leading them to the pipe and back toward the apartment complex. As Ray led the way, he could only hope he could get everyone to Ashland's apartment without issue. Did he take them to the community first? No, that would cause panic. Ray needed them to be back at his home before warning the others. He could only hope that there was enough time. Or was he already too late? Hero picked at his breakfast all morning. The things Ray was saying yesterday left the young teen curious and distressed. Was Ray right? Sure, Hero had felt a bit apprehensive with this new borrower. On the other hand, his parents didn't seem worried in the least. They welcomed Emile with open arms. Was Ray just being cautious? Or was there something up with Emile? He would need to ask his friend sooner rather than later. "Something the matter, Hero? You've hardly touched your breakfast," said his mother, as she came by and gave him a peck on the head. "You're not feeling poorly, are you?" "No, it's not that," muttered Hero, deciding to confide in his mother and father, who was sitting nearby. "It's just, I don't know. Did you get a weird feeling from Emile, that borrower who came here yesterday?" "Hero, stress and moving does different things to us borrowers. We can't hardly judge someone's responses immediately just because he seemed a little jittery. Why? Did Ray say something about him?" asked Prim.
"Your mother's right," agreed Casper. "I can have a word with him once he's settled. Until then, I don't think it's out of the ordinary to react just like that after immigrating. In fact, Ray was a bit..."
Screams. Lots of them. Casper's thought was interrupted by the sound of panicked shouts from just outside. Immediately, Casper and the other rafters approached the door, opening it to see a dozen borrowers rushing by with some of their possessions in their arms.
"What's going on?"
roared Casper as he stepped out of their home. Hero struggled past his mother and followed after his father into the fray. His ears finally were deciphering what was being said.
"Gas! There's escape gas in the walls! It's coming from the top! We need to get out of here!"
Hero felt his insides drop as he ran out to the main elevator shaft and looked up. Sure enough, there was a descending mist falling from the upper levels. Borrowers left and right were running around, looking to Casper and their friends for help.
"Casper, what do we do?"
Some of them shouted as they looked up to the descending cloud.
"We can't get out of here! The lift is broken! What do we do?" "Hero!"
Hearing his name, Hero turned and saw Ray pelting through the crowd toward him as the other borrowers huddled together in the main thoroughfare, looking to Casper for answers.
"Everyone calm down! Do we know what does?"
asked Casper, addressing the crowd as the mist continued its slow, peaceful descent. Ray grabbed his friend and hugged him before pulling away. Hero noticed immediately that Ray looked rough. There were several bruises forming on his neck, and his pale blue eyes were wild. "What's going on?"
"It's Austin. Emile. We were right," panted Ray. "He was a spy. It's a trap. All of the ways down are sealed. There are cages at all of the exits. We need to get everyone out of here."
Casper, who was standing nearby, heard Ray's explanation. Immediately, his features hardened. If the stoic borrower ever looked rattled, now was the time.
"Sealed?"
demanded Casper.
"I saw it," panted Ray. "Look, we don't have time. We need to get everyone out of here."
Other borrowers were coming to the same conclusion, spreading the word that braces had been placed in some of the hallways further down.
"How?"
demanded Casper and Hero together. It was then that Ray and Hero exchanged a quick glance, both boys knowing the answer already. Hero nodded and looked into his father's eyes.
Dad, you have to trust me. We need to get them to Ashland's apartment, said Hero. What? Demanded Casper. Casper, we don't have time. This stuff is coming quickly, and it's some kind of sleeping gas or something. This guy is trying to catch us all. We can't go down the main way. We need help. Ashland can protect us from this guy. Please, trust me, pleaded Ray.
Others nearby began to speak out in protest while others collapsed to their knees, sobbing that this was the end. Slowly, everyone was realizing there was no escape.
Go warn Ashland, Hero said to Ray. We'll get everyone there.
Ray nodded and sprinted back through the crowd to his home. The gas was falling faster, descending on them. It was only a few floors up now. Hero summoned all the courage he could and stood on one of the nearby tables.
Everyone, listen, we need to get out of here. You need to follow me. Dad, please, pleaded Hero.
Casper looked at his son and then to the masses, who were all looking to him wildly. With a solemn nod, Casper conceded.
We need to get out of the walls. Hero knows a safe place to hide. Follow Hero and do not panic, called Casper.
Hero grabbed the first borrower he could and began leading the way through the crowd to the pathway to Ashland's home. He could only hope that no one would question the safe place he was guiding them to.
Cover your nose and mouth like this,
called Hero as he walked, pulling up his shirt and pressing it against his nose and mouth, as he led the way into the walls. Hero's older brother and sister, Atlas and Callie, mimicked his lead and began shepherding everyone along the path. To his astonishment, Hero watched as other borrowers began to follow him and his siblings as they led the way into the walls. The panic was tangible, but everyone was following behind as they soon realized there was no other alternative. The question was, would they continue to follow once they realized where they were going? So, the workman desk could go in the reading room with the shelves, leaving a good space downstairs for Ray's inventions. I'm sure he'll want some good places to practice and use his inventions. So, I think that these cat trees would be a good investment, stated Ashland, as she scrolled through her virtual shopping cart. Soren was perched on Ashland's shoulder, examining all of the furniture Ashland was thinking about purchasing.
Cat trees?
Asked Soren.
That's just what they're called. But look, they have this carpet for good grips all the way up, multiple levels to create good, safe areas to practice climbing and falling. Plus, it'll be a good playhouse for Maisie. See? This... Ashland!
Ray's sudden shout made both Ashland and Soren jump. Both of them were on their feet in an instant, scanning the ground for any signs of Ray.
Ray? Ray!
Soren shouted, noticing immediately that there was something wrong in his brother's voice. Ray emerged from under the nearby cabinet, panting heavily. He collapsed to his knees and propped himself up on all fours as he caught his breath. Soren grasped the safety pin on Ashland's shoulder tightly as she stood and rushed over to Ray.
What happened? Are you all right?
Asked Ashland. She instinctually raised her hand to her shoulder so Soren could easily slide off, and then lowered him to the ground.
It's not good. I was worried about Emile,
panted Ray.
Emile?
Asked Ashland.
A new barber. Ray met him yesterday,
informed Soren, as he leapt off of Ashland's hand and crouched by his brother.
So something was wrong.
He's working with a human, Ray spat. He's trying to catch everyone here. He released some kind of gas. It's making borrowers pass out. They're all on their way here.
Wait, here? Asked Ashland.
But they don't want to be seen by... They don't know they're being led here. Ashland, can we use your bedroom? Just shut the door. Please, everywhere is blocked off, pleaded Ray.
Ashland took one breath before nodding.
Yes, sure, of course. Sorry, questions later. Let me get Dorian and Maisie out.
said Ashlyn as she stood briskly and walked into her room. She had to apologize to Dorian for moving his entire studio, but the promise of a good reason and the look in her eye kept the musician from complaining. After snagging the drawer Maisie was sleeping in, as well as her pillow, Ashlyn had successfully vacated her room, and just in time, too. The moment she closed the door, Hero and his siblings came stumbling in through the baseboard. All of the borrowers stumbled in, falling and coughing as they took in their surroundings. As they looked around, many of them retreating to a place under the bed or under furniture pieces. Questions began. Where are we? What is this place? This place looks occupied. Is there a human here? They all turned to Casper, who was doing a head count, and listened, absolutely mortified, as he explained that this apartment belonged to Ashlyn. Because of the incident with Hero being seen, Ashlyn's name was well known in the borrower community. While many of them protested, none elected to leave when they were shown the door, which now had a bit of mist coming through it. In the meantime, Ray had darted back into the walls and brought in Leon, Emile, and his family, as well as the young girl.
What is this place?
Asked Emile as he kept his arms firmly around his children and his wife.
This is an apartment,
stated Ray,
and it belongs to my friend, Ashlyn. Before you freak out, she is a human, and no, we are not pets. She is here to help us, and unless you want to take your chances with Austin out on the prowl, you'll stay put and let us help. Got it?
The others were silenced as Ray helped settle the young girl and started taking stock of what everyone needed. When he slipped under the door, he found Ashlyn and, in great detail, explained everything. He explained his feelings about Emile. He talked about the whole caging system and how he rescued the others from the car. Ray also revealed the name of their attacker, Austin, and this made Ashlyn angry. As many questions as she had, the questions about what to do about Austin and the evidence he had, was the one that consumed her mind. Did she confront him? Did she sabotage the car? How much time did they have before Austin realized his captives were free, and that his plan of mass capture wasn't going to work? It all boiled down to the real question. What was their next move going to be?